The American servers are home to the most powerful nation guild in history, as well as a huge 16 million square miles of land and a solid 1 billion players. However, as many may know, it was only quite recently that the area was permanently added to the game maps of European players. While it is true that before the area was quote-unquote discovered by Europeans, it was home to around 50 million players, the European discovery of the American servers was still a vastly important moment in the game's history, as it led to the powerhouse of a region being connected to the rest of the world, for better or for worse. So, let's discuss the first isolated moments of contact between the two sides of the world, and then finally, the most important and last discovery of the region by European players. While most players know about the discovery of America by Columbus, and many know of the previous Viking landings in Newfoundland, I will instead start this video with a more interesting, if perhaps less plausible, account of the first European players to set foot in the New World region. It is believed by some fringe historian builds that, around the year 350 BCE, a Phoenician ship may have washed ashore somewhere in the Amazon rainforest biome after having gotten lost and being carried away by the current on its way to trade with West Africa. Believers in this theory cite several artifacts which have been found in areas of South America, but all these artifacts have later been discovered to have been forgeries. The oldest confirmed expedition of European players into either Northern or Southern American servers was Norse settlement of the area. In 985 CE, a Norseman merchant player named Bjarni was pushed off track on his way to Greenland and saw land to the west. He relayed this discovery to Leif Erikson, the son of Eric the Red, the man who had first settled Greenland. In 1001, Leif sailed to this new land and made landfall in a place he named Vinland, due to what he called wine berries being found in the area. We now know that the area settled by Leif was in the northern Newfoundland server. While Leif's first expedition met with none of the native players, later expeditions did eventually encounter what the Vikings named Skrælings, and fighting ensued several times. Most notably, in 1009, native players attacked a Norse settlement with catapults after being attacked by a Norse bull. Eventually, the Norse players decided the land was too inhospitable and the locals were too dangerous, and so, after this bloody encounter, they never returned to Vinland. Almost 5 centuries later, in 1492, a Genoese cartographer player named Christopher Columbus was working on finding a way to reach the spice-rich West Indies server. A few decades before, the Muslim Ottoman Empire took over Constantinople and forced Christian Europeans to pay hefty taxes to cross the Silk Road fast travel route. Thus, Columbus was looking for a way to the West Indies that bypassed the Ottomans. When he messed up his math due to a conversion error and decided the game map was around 3 times smaller than it truly was, he decided it would be a good idea to sail around the world to find the West Indies. Contrary to popular belief, players had known that the Earth was round for thousands of years since the time of the ancient Greek Guild. However, no one had ever attempted to sail around the world because the ship and navigation tech trees had not been researched far enough, and it was believed that it was too great a distance to travel over nothing but ocean. When Columbus made his conversion error, he was convinced that the latter was not a problem, and he lived in a time when the former was becoming less of a problem. With this quote-unquote discovery, Columbus and his brothers went to numerous monarchs and lords across the European servers asking them to fund an expedition. Eventually, they convinced the newly crowned Spanish King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella to honor their ideas, and they set out with 3 ships. After 5 weeks of sailing with no sign of land and an attempted mutiny, the ship sighted land on October 12, 1492, and made landfall on an island which Columbus named San Salvador, and claimed the island for the Spanish. Historian builds are unsure of where this island is, but we do know it was somewhere in the Caribbean server. Columbus would return to the Caribbean 3 more times, but for his entire life he believed that he had not found new land, but instead the West Indies server. After his successful first voyage, Columbus was appointed as the governor of what everyone believed to be the West Indies. In this role, he was notorious as a tyrannical, violent overlord, once punishing a thief by having his ears and nose cut off before being sold into slavery. After the 3rd voyage, Columbus and his brother were imprisoned in Spain for gross misgovernance for 6 weeks. Columbus then demanded that the crown give him 10% of all the money earned in the New World, which was obviously not met, and he died in 1506 at around the age of 54. After Columbus's final discovery of the American servers, the Colombian Exchange event began. This event was defined as the exchange of goods, knowledge, and technology between the American and European servers. The Europeans gave the American players horses, guns, and other technologies, while the American players gave Europeans crops such as potatoes and tomatoes, which led to a population boom in the European and Asian servers. The exchange was not all beneficial, however. The American players gave the Europeans syphilis, and the Europeans gave the Americans smallpox. In general, the exchange was a net positive for the European players, whereas whereas the Americans were decimated by disease, and technologies such as guns and horses brought war across the American servers. While for most of history, Columbus has been celebrated as a hero and discoverer of the New World, in recent years this veneration has come to a sharp decline, with states and municipalities all over American servers ending celebrations of Columbus Day, and instead changing it to Indigenous Peoples Day. Due to Columbus's problematic treatment of native players, whom he called Indians because he thought they were in India, he has become an even more divisive figure, and debates over his legacy continue today. This is not helped by the discovery of the earlier Norse settlement in North America, or the brutality and tyranny Native American players experienced under the Spanish and other European powers after Columbus discovered the American servers. Not to mention the fact that, only years after Columbus landed on San Salvador, 90% of the area's native players had died due to disease and colonial mismanagement. In conclusion, the lesson to be learned from this part of the game's history is to always be critical of what you learn from others, as you may not be getting the full story. Many Americans today know little of the injustices committed by Columbus, or the fact that he discovered the American servers not by becoming a visionary, but by screwing up his math. Thanks for watching, this has been Outside Historian, I will just see you next week. See ya.